Let's go.
All right. Okay. You guys ready to start? Ready to start?
We are. What's going on? What is going
Hello,
on,
Internet.
Hey, everybody. Woo!
Hey, Internet.
Good evening.
What's up?
Good evening.
We're back again, Internet.
Crazy. We are back.
Thank you.
Despite our doctor's advice, we've returned.
Definitely.
We have returned.
Ignore them. They don't know anything.
I don't talk about
Goddamn
the show
doctors.
with them.
No. Especially if your doctor's
man.
name is Hemlock. Definitely don't want to listen to Dr. Hemlock. So.
But he's my
maybe-
M count
maybe-
doctor. He says. He's
Right.
so.
Anyways. But no, guys. Like I said, another great episode. Ready to dive in on this. But before we
Really?
dive in and share our thoughts
Really?
on this episode,
Really?
like I said,
Episode so far.
Really?
great
Okay.
episode. I said
Really?
this was the episode of the century.
Oh boy.
Episode of the century. So
Yep. Episode of the century. The best
episode of the
ever.
century.
I'll tell you why. Don't.
I'm sure you will. But before we dive into our episode review, let's let our guy DP let you guys know where to find us at.
NerdCyclopedia.com, people, your favorite website where you get all your favorite social media outlets, and you'll be able to at us at NerdCyclopedia. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and also on TikTok. If you are listening to us on podcast, we are on iHeartRadio, Spotify, TuneIn, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, anywhere that you listen to your favorite podcast, we are there. We're also on Odyssey as well, so make sure that you download that and tune into us. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure that you smash that subscribe button and also hit that notification button. So anytime that we're on, you know that we're on. If you're watching us on Facebook, thank you. Join our Facebook group, Carnac Bounty BS, the Star Wars group. We talk about everything Star Wars. Talk about Palpy and everything.
Palpy.
Send us some feedback too. Email us, nerds@nerdcyclopedia.com. We love getting your feedback and also, responding right back to you.
Boom.
Booyah.
Well said. Well
Put it in
said.
writing.
And
Booyah.
as I said, just excited to be back for another great episode.
Okay. Let's just get into it. I want to
jump into it. I don't.
T-Mitch. See.
Sarcasm was on sale this week.
See. Okay. What is your issue? We needed this
Seriously.
episode.
What is your issue?
We needed this episode for Crosshair and our we needed the band to get back together episode, and this was it.
This was it.
We did.
What is your issue with these type of
Can I get a
episodes?
boom
Let's
steel
not talk
too?
about
Can I
any
get a
Empire
boom?
stuff. So what is your issue? I just want to know.
Issue. This is a great episode, guys. This is a great episode. I'm serious.
What did they do to you?
No,
What happened to
to be
you?
honest, I was brain scrapes. I was brain scraped.
Mind flayer. Mind flayer.
Mind flared, yeah. But no, it wasn't a bad episode. I'm being a little harsh, and also a little bit sarcastic. It was a good episode because we got what we needed, and we got understanding of like what Crosshair's beef is with Hunter, right? So no, I really enjoyed it. If anything, like I said, to me, and this will be a talking point. Last episode was it wasn't necessarily a side mission, but more discovery, world building, just like this was, right? Another world we went on. Ultimately, there was a purpose, right? We needed to figure out how to find Tantus. So there was some interest in it. It wasn't like it was a boring episode to me, but to me, it's just in the back of my mind until Filoni can break like this, not necessarily a curse, but this trend of like these like just this. There's too many plots, and I feel like at the end we always are like left with too much meat on the bone. You talk about your smoking guns. There's a lot of guns in this. I just want to make sure they're all fired. So it's not a bad thing. I'm happy about it. I like the episode, but I'm just like in the back of my mind, just hoping that we can cash all these checks.
Wow, you will, because
He is yet to do that, and unfortunately, I like him, but he is yet to cash all the checks.
But you can't
well,
cash all the
not
checks.
all of them, but he's going to leave. He's going to leave a little bit on the table. So this episode had like a lot of little details, like even down to the Republic insignia on Crosshair's box that Wrecker gave his armor back to. I mean, there's these little things that they keep bringing me in. And I love that we had animals because Lucas loved animals. And what was our big nemesis here? A worm. And what movie just came
I
out?
was going to say that. I just seen that. You literally giant, massive worms. Except they didn't ride
Worm.
this one. They didn't get to ride this one. But spoiler alert,
No.
GP, if you haven't been there yet. So
I mean, I know what Dune has. It had it in the last movie, like the worm.
right.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of stuff. Yes. Worms, we had wildlife, we had Batcher. Batcher is now part of Bad Batch because she dug the snow out of the way so everyone could get into the depot, right? And they backed off. They were like, okay. Now I have a question for everybody. I have a question for the entire world right now. Hunter said, Omega, you stay back with Wrecker. There was not a moment that it was determined that Omega would now come with the entire team. And all of a sudden, she's there.
Well, she
I don't
said
know.
that
She said she was coming.
She said she had to do it. Like she
No, she didn't. She didn't.
She said she acknowledged it in that scene. That she acknowledged that there were clones left, and she basically insinuated she had a mission to like.
That was her opinion, but nobody said there was no verbiage that she was allowed.
I totally agree, Ken. I totally agree. I didn't hear. I was sort of waiting for Hunter to be like, okay, either you gotta stay or you're okay. Yeah, you come on. It was just the scene sort of floated off. Okay, she looked down and I sort of waited for that.
She raised an interesting
bad
point.
Writing, right? DP.
She raised an interesting point, which is that she is older than them.
Exactly.
She's older than they are.
Doesn't
She's 12
matter.
and they're like 10 or whatever.
Doesn't
What do you
matter.
mean it doesn't matter? It definitely matters.
Hunter never acknowledged the fact that she was going to be on the mission.
But I think that we're seeing
she was there.
Ken, I think we're seeing in Hitch's onto something. We're seeing the maturation of Omega. Now we're establishing she's the older sister, even though she's in the genetically younger form. So she's really hitting that maturity to like say like, I don't care what you say. I got to do this.
And Ken, to your point, when she established that thing with Crosshair as far as her age and everything, I didn't really take into I didn't really. I do acknowledge the scene that you said and the way it just floated off like that, but it didn't really bother me because they already established that with her and Crosshair. So it wasn't bad writing to me. It could have been if they hadn't have planted that point right there.
Yeah.
You know, with her and Crosshair.
Don't get me wrong, I get that, but there wasn't anywhere. There was a lot of eyes. There was a lot of eyes like looking at each other, mentioning things, but there wasn't any dialogue around. Okay, all right.
I don't think you necessarily had to have it there because, like you know, we were saying, her and Crosshair established the fact that she was older. So, with that being, with like T-Mitch said, we're seeing like witnessing like the maturity of her, and you know the fact that she's older than like you know the rest of her brothers, doesn't necessarily. If they keep saying, okay, Omega, you need to stay here and stay safe, you know, after all this is okay. Well, you guys don't get it, you know, but I think this should be the last point where they're just mentioning that, you know, to her, you know, she's one of them. She got through the whole, you know, escape and everything, you know,
everything. And Hunter was the one that was stepping down on this. He was the one.
Yeah.
And
he's more of the protector.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's like a parent. We're the same way with our children, right? Like we don't want to necessarily let them.
Why wouldn't she still be back on their
Because I think there's that point, it's like us as parents, like you got to let them go. Like, and I think that was like the baton passing. Like,
okay,
he realizes she escaped everything she's been through. Like, we just need to let her go. I need to let her go. I think that's what Hunter, and even the whole beef with him and Crosshair we'll get into. I think like that's like the maturity of the whole group of like they need to let bygones be bygones, and really it's the group as a whole. And you said this is a Star Wars story. They're no, they can't be separated anymore, right?
And that's why this is an apex episode, because it brought everything to a head. And now we know the team. Now we know where the alliances are. And even though there's some questions about, Crosshair, Echo, we don't really know where he fits. Does he accept Crosshair back completely? Omega takes over Tech's role because she's the one that knows how to get into stuff, how to decode software, how to debug. She's the one that knows all that. So maybe she fills that spot. And now we have the gang. We have the band back. So this episode's super important. Even though the first time I watched it, I was like, why did I watch that? That was
not
garbage.
Not you can. Don't do that.
Then I watched it again and I was like, no. I watched the first time, was like, oh, Team Mitch is gonna be like, oh, this is like filler space.
It wasn't. It definitely
all
wasn't
over this. Now I watched it again and I'm like, no,
even
century.
So first of all, if anything about this is filler, it's the fact that we have a monster of the week, which is something that's happened in Mandalorian.
Right.
It's something that happened in Clone Wars. They even had a Godzilla attack on Coruscant. Clone Wars.
Hitch. Wrecker said in the episode, Meta, why is there always a monster?
Know, right? So I get it. Sometimes that can feel repetitive, but it is certainly not. I don't think this was a filler episode. I think that Hunter and Crosshair had to have this conversation. We had to see them come to terms with what had happened previously. I think that the context of this is pretty low stakes mission. I mean, they're going to beat this worm, right? Like this worm isn't going to win. Yeah. So, they're coming to terms with their roles here. And, this episode raises an interesting point, and I want to go back to what Omega said. She's the oldest one. She's 11. That's how old they all are. They're all 11. It's why they got tricked so easily by like Sid. It's why they don't know what they're doing. And it's interesting that, we're seeing Omega saying that drew that into focus for me, right? And it made me think like these are 12-year-old brothers having this fight. And that made it feel like these guys are on the same little league baseball team, and now they have to get along like for the summer, even though they don't like each other at school or some sort of vibe like that, right? So it made it very interesting and recast those characters in a light, especially when we have that opening shot of Omega with Wrecker's doll, right? Yeah. To say, hey, this is the connection with them. They're spiritually the same. They're the same age, and even though they look like adults, they're not. It's like Lord of the Flies. They're all just kids.
Well, keep in mind, like you're saying, Omega may be the oldest, but genetically she was engineered to mature later than them. So that's kind of why they have the look, but the age thing kind of like they're like flipped. They're like older looking, but they're not mentally mature. She's kind of more fitting the bill as younger, fitting, and very immature.
Do we know why? Do we know
that was a design? Because remember that they wanted the clone lifespan short so they can keep turning and turning them, and they didn't want them to get older because remember we saw in the Clone Wars as they got older they started becoming more aware and they
started thinking more as they read more and became exposed to new ideas and realized they were killing people.
Why was gender? Why did gender come into play? All of a
That's
sudden?
The thing they never understood because she was the only one born on Camino. And Emery, we still don't know. She was born in space or wherever this other facility was. We don't know where she.
Well, don't forget, Jango was picked specifically by essentially Palpatine. Like they went to him directly. It wasn't like they just picked some random or anything like that. He was approached on a moon by Tyrannus. So Dooku's the one that recruited him. So they had to have been doing that for some sort of purpose.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the things that is good about this season so far is they're tying everything together all the way back from, that pre-Phantom Menace sort of stuff all the way to the end of episode 9. And I think they're doing that by tying the clones and the Fets and everybody into the project to have Palpatine return somehow, which is interesting to see them kind of going through the motions. And when you have an episode before this that's so heavy and lands so well, and you have Sheev Palpatine guest starring as like the baddie of the week, any monster after him is going to seem anticlimactic, frankly.
Right.
That guy is really terrifying, and again, this is like Joe DiMaggio in June of 41. You know what I mean? He's in the middle of a streak that's going to keep on going for a while.
I don't know. Worms that can go underneath the surface of things, that's pretty frightening. I would want to have to deal with that because you saw how hard it was for Echo to see where the worm was. It was almost impossible. And that's worm sign. Worm sign was only given to the most intuitive Freeman. And so let's just tie in a whole bunch of nerd shit right now. So right now we have a great science fiction mecca. I mean, we have Bad Batch with probably what's looking like the greatest season yet. We have Dune, which they're doing right this time. They're actually telling the story.
Correct.
And Filoni actually brought the two together. I mean, holy shit. What a great thing.
I mean, that's where Lucas, got a lot of influence.
Correct.
From. Frank Herbert was bitter about that.
Frank Herbert
was bitter about Star Wars
in George's repertoire. I mean, huge.
The Sarlacc pit scene, that was like a big no that he was very adamantly against.
I mean, the moisture evaporators thing, a lot of the stuff on Tatooine just seems very familiar.
Very
familiar.
Spice is
very familiar.
Spice controls the universe. I mean,
where do we get Spice from? Yeah, come on now.
We should definitely take some time to talk about Dune, for sure, right? I definitely think we should. It's wild. Phenomenal. Have you guys seen that movie about the 70s version they were going to make by that weird avant-garde director? If you haven't seen that, it's on Max. You should check it out. It's like Jablonski's.
Jablonski.
Dune. Yeah. Well, I'm actually going to look up what that is.
Yeah, look it up. You have the internet?
I do have the internet. Joe Dorowski's Dune. So cool stuff. He tried to make the Harkonnens headquarters shaped like the Baron. You know what I mean? Like, it's just wild stuff.
Oh, right, and now we know how to say it. Harkonian.
Yeah, everybody used to say Harkonnens, but it was Harkonians.
I don't know, but I mean, okay. So this episode had a lot of animals too, right? So it was like, it was like sort of a very touchy-feely animal episode. There were a lot of moon-yos that were running around. They were like womp rats. Batcher is now part. I said it. Batcher is now part of the crew.
Yeah, I like Batcher.
Batcher is basically like their R2, right? They don't have any droids, so Batcher fits the role of that. Batcher fits that role of that droid that they don't have. That's the only thing they're missing in their crew, right? Is a droid. So,
do you guys, if I said Cousin Oliver to you, do you know who Cousin Oliver is? With the Brady Bunch, they won 6 seasons. By season 6, Cindy Brady was, I mean, she's 13 doing second grade math or trying to spell cat and stuff. They just couldn't, she wasn't cute anymore. So they brought on Cousin Oliver. And what Cousin Oliver was this little kid, and he was annoying, but he would get the focus of the plot of these Brady Bunch episodes because they had done so many episodes about these kids. Is Batcher Cousin Oliver? And is Batcher going to go upstairs one day and just never come back downstairs?
No. Batcher is now part of the gang.
That's pretty harsh.
Because what happened when Wrecker and Hunter started digging at the snow? Batcher dived into the middle, started digging, what did they do? They backed off. They were like,
dogs are
nope.
good at that, man.
No, he's good. We're gonna let him go.
Yeah.
I mean, they let him. Batcher's a girl. BTW.
That's correct. They did make sure to let us all know. She.
So Batcher and Omega and Emery are like the only female characters we have right now, and Star Wars is actually a hugely equalized based story where everybody gets a chance. Like it's not all male based, it's not all female. But in Bad Batch, all we have is Emery, Omega, and Batcher. Like,
let me ask you this: is this Disney pushing an agenda, having this hunting companion be a woman?
There'll be this is the one time that we can, like, I don't know, on this show I feel that we can all agree, because there's YouTubers out there with their theories, but like, I mean, there's no Mary Sue, right? I mean, you know, Omega takes some ass whoopings. I think it's pretty fair to say.
She got captured.
She took
a huge L. That's a huge L.
Yeah, she went to jail.
And it wasn't one of those things where it's like, because sometimes a Mary Sue type character will be like, I'll be captured so that I can I'll be right in the middle of your fortress, and then there's nothing you'll be able. Like Batman does that a lot, right? Yeah. Batman's like the class A example of a Mary Sue, but like the acceptable ones. The whole point of Batman is that's what they are.
But think about it. She's like the perfect
he knows everything. Yeah. He knows everything, and he can see everything that happens.
She's like the final form clone, though, and she's not even overpowered, which is so crazy. And I think it's well written. If we really think about it, like, she is what every clone should be. Essentially, she is the perfect clone, which is why Nalase is hiding her. But yet, like, she doesn't have this like overpowered trait to be like, you know what I mean? Kind of like, I hate to say.
Well, she's the one that everybody. She's the one that the Empire wants and stuff. So I mean,
is Rey, right? She's
for what she is and how she is and everything. She's like genetically.
Perfect.
She's genetically, well, not perfect, but genetically special.
Right.
So is Emery a defect? Emery is a defect.
If you really think about it, they're all defective except Omega. Omega is the only one that did the thing Palpatine wanted to prove he could do.
The very word Omega is the one.
Right.
So the very point that Dave decided to name her Omega means that she's it. She's the pinnacle. She's the best of the best of the best. Omega is in all everything, religion, everything, the top, the spire of whatever you're believing. She's the one that's going to bring you the most fortune.
It's just kind of like the one that will bring balance to the force. Think about the name of the show, The Bad Batch, right? So there's a Bad Batch, and then there's an Omega with the Bad Batch. So there's a one with all the bad ones, which makes it even more ironic. And I just like to point out as well, we're talking about this story building, character building, and how she's like essentially way powerful than she is, but she's not showing these overpowering traits. Do you think that Star Wars has learned from these like Mary Sue-isms with Rey? I mean, her power ascension, we talked about it. From her locking grips with Kylo Ren in the first movie to like magically unlocking this crazy force power to like then like not even taking necessarily damage for 2 movies, like to where Omega there's a build-up, right? Like me and Hitchell or Goku, right? We have to get in the chamber, we have to power up, we have to train. I feel like she's training. The whole Rey thing is like skip really a lot of the training, show her do some little stuff with Luke, and then all of a sudden she's like Super Saiyan, right?
So what have we talked about that we don't see in this series at all?
Rey's dad.
What is? Huh?
Are you talking about Rey's dad?
No. In Bad Batch, what do we not see ever, or it's not talked about? The Force. Jedi.
Yeah.
Well, the Force was kind of like Palpatine, but he doesn't use it, right?
But what would bring
Omega, you're right, we did see the guy.
Her up? What would bring Omega to the absolute apex of her power? The Force.
We We don't know yet. I mean, I hope that we talked about it. They steer clear, but
I hope they do too. Going back to your point though, T. Mitch. I mean, okay, wasn't Luke sort of like that in Ray?
Yes.
Like, I mean, you're talking about Ray all of a sudden having these
but Luke
abilities
was
or whatever.
but Luke at least was semi-trained by Yoda. Granted, he had the back
Semi-trained.
half yeah, because he left. Remember, he was like
he
starting
left.
to him, and then he went off. But
Plus, he then fought his dad, which he fought his dad, and then he fought literally a dude that wanted to use his body to take over that didn't want to damage him in any way, right? Then his dad. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
definitely
think about it. His dad whipped his ass and cut his hand off at least.
He did whip his ass to prove a point.
Right?
There's a lot of dads that would do that.
So they cut off Ray's hand somehow to show that she had something, I admit, like by the third movie, her with the lightning strike and everything, that was sort of like, okay, really, where did this come from?
And she's like, and you got to figure, like, Omega is the science experiment that Palpatine's paying all the attention to. Rey is just like something that's growing in the back of the fridge. He doesn't even know about. He has no idea that Rey's even around, and then she just shows up.
She's a leftover in the back of it. I like.
Yeah,
that.
she's like a son. He's like takes his son. He's like, "You're a disappointment. Get out of here!" Ah! And then he just like throws him in the back. And then like 50 years later, boom! All of a sudden, you have this insanely sensitive.
So what if in this episode, we saw a glimpse at what Hemlock is going through right now?
Well, that's all I was saying as far as like my negativity. It's not anything bad about it, but like I said, there's just a lot. I want to see more, and it's always like, the heroes. We need to see more about the Empire because this is it. So when this ends,
I love the Empire. I love them.
We don't know anything about it. It's just like there's so many more questions that arise about this whole, what is it, Project Necromancer that like,
Well, they have how many? They have like what, 10 more episodes left, 11 more episodes left. So
we'll be talking about this
a lot of children
spring.
in those episodes. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
sure.
I mean, I understand you're get to the point, but
it's not get to the point. It's just
left.
There's a time. All right, we're gonna keep an eye on it.
You look at the time and everything.
I will say this is as good as the last episode. I'd say I prefer 3 to 4 or 4 to 5. Right? 4 was better than 5, but I think 5 is very good. This is an A.
Yeah.
If it's not an A plus,
this is good.
You know what I mean?
Because ultimately there was a meaning to this though. Like it's not like filler, like it's just a side quest to like get fuel. Like they literally needed to try to get in this tablet to understand where the hell to get to Tantus. And with the Rex tie-in and stuff, like there was actual substance to this episode. It wasn't like a side quest to where, like, you know what I mean? They're just not doing nothing.
Also, they needed to. Well, they just escaped. They just met. They got back together, and we needed an episode pace wise to establish that emotional balance with the whole crew again before we get back to. We can't have another episode like this next week. I don't think.
No. We gotta get back into the story.
Yeah, especially now with another worm. It better have a different.
No more worms. And you know what? I wonder. I was thinking. I watched this like 4 or 5 times. Hunter has the best hair of all the clones.
He's Rambo. If you haven't noticed, he's built off of like Rambo.
Yep.
He's literally Rambo.
And that leads something to his character. So are we going to see like Hunter like break off and do something like really crazy?
Like a leader sacrifice? Nah, man. He's Jason on the Power Rangers. No, he's Jason.
I don't know. I don't know that Hunter makes it out of our storyline, this arc. I think Hunter is the one. So we lost Tech. That sucked.
He had a nice little moment in his memory too.
Yeah, but I think Hunter
falling backwards. That's a nice moment.
He's gonna sacrifice himself for some reason because Omega can basically take over Tech's role. I mean, she's on it. They're like, we need to divert all this power to this depot. She's like on it, right?
I don't know. I don't think they've rounded Hunter's character enough for me. They
think he's going to be there at the end.
Yeah, absolutely.
They
I mean,
can't-
if they're trying to make an emotional sacrifice, you wouldn't choose him to be the one. You know, I mean, we're not. If
Because
that's
Wrecker's the one that's got.
No, Wrecker is like he don't. No.
He's like the comic relief. He's like the what is that
Yeah.
guy from Guardians? What's the
He's like
Batista
Wash from
Gronk.
Serenity.
He's what's his name? What's the guy from
Dax.
Guardians?
Dax.
He's Drax.
Drax.
Yeah, he's Drax. Yeah, he's Drax. That's what he is. But no, if they learn anything from Marvel, like they shouldn't have done in Black Panther, do not kill another main character. Just don't do it.
Don't
They did that
do
in
it.
Black
You
Panther
think-
2, which is
So
Yeah.
you think Hunter is going to be there at the end?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
who are we losing? Because we have to lose somebody.
if
It's a
if
story.
anybody has to be lost, it's probably going to end up being Crosshair.
Also, but wait a minute, isn't Echo already dead? Technically, it's like technically, strictly speaking, he's already dead.
Yeah, he's kind of like
died.
cybernetic at this point.
So maybe they go.
No,
But I mean, but do
does
we
that
think this
make
is?
sense? Does
We
that
talked
make
about
sense
this.
to you?
Is this going to be like the Rogue One? Because like, I think somehow they get to
They all
Tantus.
get
And
wiped
somebody has to make a sacrifice to destroy Tantus. I
You're
think
telling
you're
me-
right.
You're
And
telling
I
me there
think
are
it's
no clones are still around. No one really talks about what happened to the clones in the future of
Right.
Star Wars either. So I mean, and if I'm Palpatine and I can put that, turn on the Jedi
I
switch,
knew you
and
were.
if I
There you go.
Oh,
I would
here we
put on
go.
a kill the Jedi switch. No, so I would have a kill all the clone switch installed as well. I figured that might come in handy. Given
And
our
I think Hunter
tendencies to revolt.
would be the only one that would like die. I don't know.
I don't know.
I wouldn't feel it. I mean, Hunter dies. I wouldn't
Man,
feel
you
it.
hate him. You hate him, Ken. You got an agenda.
No, I don't.
Anti-Hunter
hate it,
agenda.
But I think
What's
he's
up?
the one that's gonna he's gonna give his blood. He's gonna give every organ he has left in his body to save
but
Omega.
It's almost like the obvious choice there. But if you want to have like emotion, like make people feel, to me, it would either be Crosshair or Omega.
Right.
Because they're the ones that we've been tied to like for these past 4 episodes, really. It's almost become the Omega show. But they've rounded Crosshair's character so much like these past 3 seasons. We're just like tied to his whole arc and journey. He started out as a teammate and everything, went over to the Empire. Now he's back and everything. So he's like, okay, we're emotionally invested in Crosshair. Everybody else is pretty much like a archetype or type or something like that for the most part, except Omega, because she's been like the one that's been through the ringer and stuff. So if we're emotionally invested in any 2 characters in this show, it's Omega and Crosshair.
Okay. Well, think about this. What character in the entire Star Wars universe died and we were like, wow, that was heavy?
Personally, to me, it was Qui-Gon Jinn because I still don't understand how that happens, how he gets dispatched so easily. But that's going to be another episode for another day. I'm still pissed about that. That just doesn't happen. So, what are you going to say? I mean, we can't talk about the sequel trilogy because what's dumber than that? Luke disappearing in his dust, like him separating himself. Like, come on, bro. Like. Even that, I watched that Saturday. By the way,
to answer your question, for me, Ken is probably Leia. I was not happy when she passed.
Okay, Han Solo was one too, right?
Harrison Ford definitely didn't want it. Like that was hard because Harrison Ford did not want him to survive that movie, and he was very open about that. He thought Han should have died in Episode 6. He's like, "What? How come I'm even still here, man?"
Vader. Darth Vader died.
Well, he didn't necessarily.
Man, I wish he wouldn't have now in retrospect. Could you imagine the trial of Darth Vader? It'd be wild.
No, man.
It would have been like the Richtenberg trials. What was that? The Nuremberg trials. Oh my god!
But the death of Darth Vader was like a 2-part, right? Because it necessarily wasn't a death. It was really like the the defeating a personality almost. It was always Anakin Skywalker. He just had to split personalities, and it was like finally Anakin took over his body back. He got his, you know what I mean? It was
I can
that's the way I located it.
Throw that one out. That's fine. So Hunter is sort of like he's a mix of everything. He's a mix of a lot of our heroes that we've grown up with now, and I feel like he's the one that's going to go.
But would you feel it?
Yeah, I feel it.
You feel it? Okay.
I feel like if you're going to kill one of these, well, one of these squad members is going to give their self the ultimate sacrifice to like Cassian did in Rogue One. He gave himself the ultimate sacrifice. He let himself
connected to Cassian though. I just don't feel that with Hunter. They needed to do more work with Hunter to me throughout this series to make that decision if they go that route. You know.
So you don't think he's like the man, like the.
I think he's an obvious choice, but to me, I wouldn't feel it. I'm like, okay, Hunter's dying. I mean, Hunter's sacrificing. Oh well, you know.
I mean, if he's the main character, we know less about him than any of the Star Trek captains. You know what I mean? Like, we don't see much of his internal monologue. We don't see like what's his conflict here, other than he wanted to be in charge because he was bred to be in charge, or changed in the test tube to be in charge, or whatever. I mean,
maybe they give us an episode with just him solo through these last 10 or whatever, something to connect us a little more. I don't know.
Well, they already. I mean, if Tech is truly gone and dead, they can't kill another one. Right? They've already done. You know what I mean? Like we've already had that like big loss as a team.
You know, I mean, to Ken's point, someone in the crew having to sacrifice himself would be another death with the crew.
They would, but if you watch that episode, Ken, they've already laid the breadcrumb of what's going to happen in the end. As I feel, this is not a spoiler. This is not me being told something. Remember, what did they say when they were discussing the plans? It was very, very important. They asked her and Crosshair, "What do you know about Tantus?" And the biggest thing was she mentioned Emery was there, which is the highest end. And what does Emery not know about? What's going on? Why they're doing this? So I feel like we're going to find Emery because there is that connection, right? There's always one that defects from the Empire. She's starting to question what happened. She's worrying about her sister now. Yeah. She's going to find out what they're doing, and I think that's when things change and they see sacrifice.
And what's Hunter's biggest focus, his drive, his objective? Protecting Omega. So whatever, you're absolutely right, T. Mitch. You're absolutely right. But Hunter's going to be right there, right in the middle of it. And I think ultimately he's going to perish. He's going to die in a big way, but he will succeed in protecting Omega. Yeah, Hunter out. I don't
know why we got political on this show. I really was not trying to do that. Just kidding, guys. But I think there is some work to be done for Hunter, right? And I would love to see because obviously what Crosshair said about it being his fault that Omega got captured hit home, and he feels responsibility for these guys.
Yes, that was huge. That conversation, that was huge. Yes.
So I think Hunter's in charge because he has the best instincts, right? Like that's his thing is he can sniff stuff out. So I want to see him using that more and knowing something's a trap, doing it anyway. I think he could he could have a death that was productive and earned at this point in the series. But I agree that with DP, I just don't think they'll do it again. Why go back to the same well when you're telling an endgame story here and you have the one character that you really could have that could carry on into the eras that you're doing live action shows and the other marketable stuff is Omega. Like everybody else is going to be, they have a shortened lifespan. They're only going to live another 15, 20 years from where they are now. Like they're not going to be around for, to be in the Jedi Academy training Grogu, for instance, right? In another, 30 years or 25 years or however long that is. So to me, they're not going to do anything to Omega either. So I really think if we're going to see anything weird, it'll be, like either they all die or they all live, pretty much, right? Because I could see them doing it. Hey, they all sacrifice themselves to make X or Y happen, or feel like there's certain goals they could have that I could see them sacrificing themselves. But we already had one death to save the group, so they've already had that happen. They already know, what it's like. We already seen the impact. So doing it again is going to have a diminished return because of the law of diminishing returns.
So you don't think there's one single character that's going to perish now?
Well, I think Hemlock's in some trouble. I think Hemlock's in some trouble.
I would say Hemlock. Nalase is another one.
Yeah.
I mean, say the shit hits the sideways, bro. Who says that Palpy doesn't pull a Star Destroyer and light up the whole facility, right? We've seen this happen a ton of times in Star Wars. Maybe Hemlock, something goes wrong. Palpatine shows up with a fleet of Star Destroyers, and they just light the planet up. Maybe if they think that
Hemlock.
There's no way they're not going to kill Hemlock. I mean, he definitely fails to give Palpatine the means to clone himself into a new non-scarred, messed up body for 40 years. So it's not like he's going to be successful.
But we don't know yet. We didn't even see the vault.
I don't know.
Go in.
Emperor's not that forgiving a dude. I mean, we've seen how forgiving Darth Vader is, and according to Vader, Emperor's less forgiving.
Oh, he's less, but he kept him around. I mean, he kept him around for a long time. I don't think Palpatine is like that quick to get rid of his most powerful assets. I think he keeps people around when they're effective.
I think Omega's probably going to be the sole survivor of this whole thing. I mean, because like Hitch was saying that we don't get any mention of the Bad Batch in the future and stuff. And I think because they're not really making an impact. I mean, they're like the unknown soldiers in the future and stuff. I mean, they're on the ground, doing like the dirty work where they're not going to get any type of fanfare or parade or whatever. They're just soldiers, trying to do what, and if we're not going to get any mention of them in the future, then I don't think that. I mean, it's just a bold thing to say that okay, they might not survive this season.
I mean, you got all these clones just hanging around, right? Just chilling. All of them bred and trained to murder and break and at least destroy robots, at least tear apart machinery. And you're telling me that there's no, nothing they can do to improve their station if they don't think they're being taken care of properly by the power that bees. You know what I mean? The Emperor. A revolt of the army that won you the throne is a pretty common thing to happen in history. It's actually very common, especially if you have an army that's mostly mercenary and you lose and then you don't pay them. And then what happens is they turn around and say, we'll just take it out of your end, your rear end. And they just attack you. Right. I would imagine that would be a bad news bearer situation for the Empire if they're saying, hey, we're law and order and security. And then the next thing you know is all these military veterans are turning up and camping on your lawn and you have to disperse them. And it turns into a whole thing like it was for Douglas MacArthur in the 30s. Right. So it's stuff that they got to deal with these clones one way or the other. And they don't talk about them. There are not clones by the time Star Wars is going on, or else, we'd see them. They'd be around. We'd see some of them even wearing crappy old helmets or different helmets, or they'd be there, and they're not even talked about.
It has to be addressed somehow, and I think this series is probably going to address that reason why we're not seeing anything in the future. So, yeah, they all might go.
I still think I think we're going to be surprised. I don't know.
If they do go, I don't think it'll be novel. It'll be they're not going to just let them go like on some bullshit, right? I mean, it's going to be way worth it. I mean, if anything, you learn from Filoni. He always he at least ties it
happy
together.
ending somewhere.
It will be. It'll be.
Yeah.
Just Batcher though.
I think the biggest thing is like we talked about though, like where does the future of Omega like? We talk about she's the only one that makes out of it. Okay, that's cool, but like, so like, where is he in the future of Star Wars? Because if we're threading this fabric, and she is, let's just say, whatever. I don't even know. We're guessing that she ages a lot younger. Is it possible that Filoni brings her together in this Mando universe? We're in the cloning stuff. I mean, she could be an elder at this point, older, right? But we just don't know.
So
Granted, it would be about what? It would be about 50 years.
So she's 11 now when the Empire falls. So she's about 30 during the stuff going on with New Hope, and about 37 during the Mandoverse. So she's about turning the corner on 40, which in the Star Wars universe is probably like being 15 because he probably don't live to be 9 million years old.
Yeah, because time makes no sense.
Oh, I was interested to see some physics. I was going to say that last week. There was some equal and opposite reactions going on physically. So it seems like the laws of physics in the Star Wars universe could be very similar to the laws of physics in our universe, despite the fact that light goes much, much slower when concentrated into an energy bolt.
So
laser blast goes slow.
So Steel City and Bad Batcher, you guys didn't answer T Mitch's question about what character made you guys, I guess, what was it, T Mitch? What character made you guys feel?
Oh, the death, yeah. The death?
What death impacted you?
I would say, to me, the biggest impact death in the Star Wars series to me is actually Owen and Beru Lars, right at the beginning of episode 4, when Luke comes back from going to Obi-Wan's house and he finds the burnt skeletons of his surrogate mother and father in their homestead, just laying, and they do not spare the skeletons. They're just there, charred, left by the Empire. That is a heavy drop, and it really sets the tone for why Luke shifts in seriousness and why he sort of grows up right away. And that to me is just it's so profound, because it gives him this sense of purpose, and it removes all those tethers that Obi-Wan was talking about in the scene before. It's like, oh, there's too much of your uncle and you follow me on some damn fool idealistic crusade or something like that, right? So that's always something that's been very heavy duty in my opinion.
And you know what's also important there? Stormtroopers. Only their shots are so precise. And we know stormtroopers can't fucking shoot to save their lives.
Was he being sarcastic? And that line should have been read sarcastically, but he didn't know. Like Alec Guinness just didn't know stormtroopers can't shoot.
Yeah, Obi-Wan should have known. And if we go back and watch Obi-Wan Kenobi, the series, we know he knew stormtroopers couldn't shoot because he said it multiple times through the entire series. So why, when he was like 90 or however old he's supposed to be?
I mean, he's only like 55 years old, by the way. Like, that's the other thing about this series that bothers me.
So why, when he was like 50 and he's like, oh, this is a big surprise, stormtroopers can shoot? No, they can't. And why was he telling Luke this? So here's the thing. Is Luke being bamboozled? Is he being lied to from the beginning? Because Obi-Wan basically started his training and told him stormtroopers could shoot. You have to be afraid of them. I mean, this is the whole thing. We could talk about
something we can run with.
I think it's like a cultural reference that, you know what I mean, that went over Luke's head just because he's a little bit too young to really get like that's like what he's talking about. So it's just kind of like if I said less like great taste, less filling, like some people would get what that is, right? Some people would understand what that is. Other people would not know what that is.
He already tried to go to where was it, to meet Biggs and
Tosche Station.
I mean, come on, guys. I mean, we're looking at big hypocrisy here.
So he's a kid. He's got a hot rod. You know, he wants to go pick up parts for his car. Maybe he wishes he had a girlfriend, but he lives in the middle of the desert.
American graffiti. American graffiti.
Right. He's George Lucas in like 1962 or whenever, whenever that was.
And he didn't have a lightsaber, and he doesn't know how to fire a blaster, and all of a sudden he's force sensitive. Come on.
Yeah.
And he wears cutoff shirts, I'm sure.
He's got a pack of cigarettes rolled up in this.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he is one of he wears sleeveless t-shirts. He wears sleeveless t-shirts.
Look at what we're saying now, and we talk about it every week. Do these characters automatically have force sensitivity, like just because they're in this universe, and they just have it, they just got it?
Well, this is an interesting series in our continuing effort to understand if there's a lot of force sensitive people or not a lot of force sensitive people, because on the one hand you have yet another character is force sensitive that we're following, right, in Omega, which means that
and she hasn't exactly exposed it. She just is really good at what she does.
She's good at everything. And everybody has a friend like that, right? We all have a friend like that. That's just preternaturally good at friggin' everything. And it drives you insane. It just makes you hate them and hate them.
The force?
I feel like again, this is another thing that comes up a lot. I feel like there is something to that, right? That there's intuitive people that are good at doing certain things or good at learning new things or something like that. And that feels like an analogous thing to what the force is like in some ways, right? And some people like you play sports with them and they're just
math.
What's that?
The scientists will call that mathematics.
Math? Fuck math.
Right. So we have this very small sliver of all the people in this universe that we see. So many of them are force sensitive. It makes you think anecdotally, hey, that should be a pretty common thing if every single person we talk to basically has it. So that it's an interesting question, because they also are saying we tested millions, billions, hundreds of thousands, so many clones. None of them were force sensitive at all. Makes you think, wow, scientifically they're telling us that nobody's force sensitive in this universe, and it's really extremely rare. So we're getting contradictory terms, which I think is cool, because it keeps you guessing which is which, and isn't trying to tell you which is which is the opposite of, I think, what this. I think the sequel trilogy is trying to tell you which is which, and is telling you different stuff at different times, which is I don't like it. It's not being ambiguous. I like that this is ambiguous about whether it's one or the other, or both, or it depends on what year.
Midichlorian counts didn't come into effect until the prequels, right?
M count.
99. M count. Just like power level. Well, they had to find that stuff.
Yeah.
His M count's over 9,000.
At least they had scout readers. At least they can see it, right? They had some technology. Here we just have I don't know, what was that? Qui-Gon kind of walked around with the fucking EpiPen thing and just stabbed him and extracted him like he was almost diabetic, right? He hit him with the pen and was testing his blood. I was
then it's what? Like I'm gonna see how force sensitive you are by whooping your ass.
That had to your ass right now. That had to just blow people's minds as soon as they start mentioning M counts. What? What? Where did this come from? On
his Lady Schick razor or whatever they used to make that communicator. And it's and it's another one of those sci-fi things where the real technology went so fast. It's worse. It's worse than a flip phone is the thing he has. It's terrible.
Holding it like this,
It's like he sends an email to Obi-Wan with the results, and everyone was like, "How to even do that?" 99 was a wild thought.
I mean, it's been a wild ride, right? It's been a fun episode. Although I've been sarcastic, like I said, and I know DP likes to think I was being really a lot more sarcastic than I was, but no, it was a good episode. I mean, to me, and this is the thing, right? This was just tied to 4, so I'll give it 4 and 5, right? It's more of the development of this off story. But like I said, I'd like to get back to Hemlock. I still like to get back to some of the experiments. We still got to figure out what's going to happen with Nala Se, because based on last thing Hemlock said, that her ass ain't making it. So
yeah, right before they got to the new planet, this debunked Imperial facility, I would have liked to have seen a Hemlock sequence.
Well, keep in mind, there's this bounty hunter that's like after them or whatever he sent. Somebody's like, we have to pay that off. Somebody's on the way looking for them.
Sent the entire Imperial force.
Someone's gonna show up at that planet and be like, it looks like they fought a worm or something. I don't know.
I think it's gonna be like, I think it's gonna be
those are the entire Imperial army.
Yeah. It's gonna be like Cad Bane or somebody. He hired. There's gonna be a bounty hunter. There'll be a big character. We'll see.
More Cad Bane.
There's gonna be somebody. We'll see somebody.
Cad Bane was great. What if it was like?
We're gonna see somebody.
Boba Fett.
I think Boba Fett's doing time right now. He's in the clink.
Look at that.
I killed the music. It's on me. All right.
It's all right. But yeah, guys, it's as we're wrapping things up here. It's been another great episode, leading into episode 6. We got another 11 left? Is it 18?
I think it's 15, so about 10 more episodes left.
10 more.
Yeah.
So
That's
we're hitting that early, that 1/3 point here. So, happy that we've got 5 in. Still 5 strong episodes, so not necessarily a bad episode yet. I'd like to keep the momentum going into next week. And then, as we guys have mentioned, we'll get that Dune review here over the next week or so. So keep an eye on the channel. X-Men 97 premieres on the 20th. I just seen. It's a 2-episode introduction. So as we get closer to that, we'll let you know.
Have you guys been rewatching X-Men from the 90s? I've been rewatching it. It is hilarious. It is one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. Where they're just like, where Wolverine's always like angry that like Jean doesn't like him or something, like constantly, like for years and years, like give it up. And the other thing is, I don't think this was the case in the 90s, but he's like 150 years old.
Yeah, he's old as hell.
Going on.
Yeah,
because
they're like
teens,
a little later. And he's like a grown man. Like it's weird.
And he's got the haircut from like 1870. So he's been around for he's been an adult for like 150 years. He's still like, he's going into space, and you'd think he'd be like, "Oh, a railroad, I don't trust those things."
It's crazy, and it's like a super side, and I'll just finish on this. But like, what you say about Wolverine and like his like age, bro? Like, how old was Wonder Woman when she was dating that dude? Right? She's like 400, and Cuz is like 18 in the military, 19. You know what I'm talking about in Wonder Woman 1980?
War ages you, man. When you're in war, that's what happened to the Bad Batch.
But she's like in war, and 100 years old. Like, you know what I mean? She's old as hell.
You've seen Band of Brothers, right? You guys have seen Band of Brothers. They have Damian Lewis plays Winters, right? You ever see an actual picture of Dick Winters from the actual Band of Brothers? He looks like he's 5 because he was only like 23 years old. It's incredible. Like you would never buy an actor that actually looked like that guy doing that stuff. So I think war does age you. It makes you look older. It makes you feel older. Yeah. Man, you need less of it, I guess.
Hopefully.
What is it good for? Absolutely
nothing.
Yeah, guys, like we said, another great episode. Please smash the like if you're watching us live, and give us your comments as always. And until next week, this is the way.
This is the way.